This session is all about Chef and you, and I have an awesome material that I'm excited to share with you for the next 45 minutes so that you will learn something about test process, the strategy and the approaches to deliver high-quality chef cookbooks. Primarily, in other words, it's about having your changes tested even before it reaches production environment. And also, to be the change agent in your team. Who wants to be a change agent? Who wants to go back to your team and say, no, this is wrong. We have to do it right. Yes, we have enough of RCA. No more RCA. Let's get back to our work. Let's stop finger pointing, right? That's the entire intention of this particular presentation. Okay, it's gonna be brief in terms of the table of contents. You have introduction, fundamental principles, which includes the culture of testing chef cookbooks, the testing strategy, deployment orchestration or choreography, in other words, the summary and Q&A. So if you have attended the keynote speech this morning, it's all eye candy, right? It's all about, oh, we can automate this, we can automate that. How about we get things into a few lines of code and everything will be so wonderfully happening and everybody will be happily ever after. Wrong. Right? Because if you go back to the foundations, it's all about the mindset of yourself and your peers about how to get things done right, even without using additional help or tools, like additional tools like Automate or Habitat. It's all about, can you imagine yourself going all the way back to just using knife commands and bubble those skills up? It's better that way so that you'll be able to know and identify your gaps to actually reduce the dependency on additional tools. Come on, you might be thinking about, but Nick, we wouldn't be achieve high velocity without those tools. Wrong. If you keep on stuck on attending RCA meetings, that's what dampens your velocity, right? You can't even go far. It's all about creating backlogs and even more backlogs and finger pointing. Okay. To reiterate what Jeff Vogt introduced myself, Principal Software Engineering Test at Okta. I am representing Okta as a presenter. However, the content in this presentation is entirely of my own, doesn't necessarily represent Okta. So a few housekeeping items to share with you. First, ChefConf app. Do remember to install it and provide feedback in the survey form. Rate me, please. This is like my performance review. Nah. And then second, questions. If you have questions, please take down notes of your questions. I will do my best to answer them at the end of my presentation within the time stipulated. If you still have additional questions upon more questions, we can certainly meet up outside to talk more about what can be done right in your process or in your organization. The third one, this is the most interesting one, phones. So you may set it to vibrate mode, not required to turn it off. Yes, because you might want to take pictures of the content material, presentation material throughout the session. You may just snap this screen by itself, or including myself in it. I'm fine with that too, or myself. No, another joke. Okay, about Okta. Let's see. Let me try to describe briefly about what Okta does. If you ever, if your IT admin roll out this process about requiring you to approve or deny your login or to provide like 6-digit codes, that's most likely Okta behind the scene. So Okta core business focuses primarily on identity as a service with multi-factor authentication, single sign-on, universal directory, as main applications. And we work with customers so that we help them connect their organizations and users to be more productive and secure in their digital transformation process. Imagine if you, let's get a name from this gentleman here. Okay, imagine Mark, right? Mac, yes, Mac. Imagine Mac join a company A, and company A is still trying to figure out how to provision a new employee, right? And that would actually create so much stress on the IT team to allow access to Mac, to able to allow him to be productive. So Okta helps with that. And shameless plug, we are hiring. Okay. And together with me is actually another fellow from Okta. He's my boss, Jeff, over here. And that's the reason why I need to do this really, really good. If you're interested to know more about our opportunities at Okta, do go visit this site, and come see me if you want to learn more. Okay. Yep. I see those. Don't stop clicking. Don't stop snapping. Yep. Fundamental principles: culture of testing, chef cookbooks, test process and accompanying tools, deployment choreography. These are the overarching messaging of my presentation is about how to deliver high quality chef cookbooks, which means that your changes are fully vetted before it even reaches production environment. Let's be honest. For those that are in DevOps, every time when there are issues, your first reaction is, let's get this thing out into production immediately, right? I see some are not doing eye contact with me because it's like UTS charge. Okay, so having said that, I bet a more mature organization would have been thinking about, hey, let's start thinking about a deployment or testing cycle with regards to the changes in Chef. If you're looking at it this way, it will be very akin to how your fellows in the product side of things work. They have a barrage of unit testing, any kinds of testing, and then they shove it into something they call it CI. So ideally, in order to have a good and well-tested chef cookbooks, you should have the same mindset too. Having said that, the first is that even before we are thinking about a CI framework, right? The first is that we should instill a culture of testing, because like what I mentioned previously a few seconds ago, it's all about, hey, that's an issue, let's get it fixed. And then your fellow ops will say, yeah, let's do it. But in terms of maturity, it will be something about, do you have a PR? Right? Oh yeah, I do. Just sign it off. Yeah, sure. I'm going to push it out. Boom. Outage. Uh-oh. So do not repeat something that happened most recently about a database, a script that causes database outage to a certain core services software organization. Okay, so culture of testing chef cookbooks. As you can see here, there are just simply three boxes. Code, deploy, done. Woo, done. Let's go out. Let's change the world. No, wrong. Because this kind of deployment methodology illustrates the level of maturity of the DevOps organization. Although many of us would want to do it this way, but honestly, unless testing is enforced, you never get a really quiet moment when you push out your codes at the done phase. So it's awesome, but how confident are you with your own work? Let's be honest. It will be something about, hey, there's a meltdown. What should we do? And then when you are making your changes, how confident are you that you're not breaking the changes from your coworker, right? And then the other thing is that how confident are you that your fellow coworker are not breaking your changes? So these are the areas to food for thought for you to reflect upon when you bring this information back to your team and start brainstorming. So that there's some kind of improvement to bring upon to the team. If you look at this, there are just too many crosses. I'm not going to elaborate each and every point in this, because if you look at this, it will be very similar to watch some kind of medication commercial in a television where it says, error testing with inconsistent or flaky test result, outage, customer impacted, noisy pager, noisy alert, root cause analysis, meeting, let's open performance, code review, code version collection, inconsistent code opinion, fixing broken plumbing. So it's something like, okay, it's good, but that's just too, it's just too riled up with issues if there's lack of discipline in terms of testing chef cookbooks. So let's cross that out. Let that be history. You might be thinking that, no, I still want to go it this way. But if you switch your mindset to something that's rudimentary from a few slides prior to this, instead of asking, did you test this? It will be something about presenting to your peer that is going to make that change and ask him this set of questions. Trust me, maybe we can talk about this. Trust me, this happened at Okta. We didn't have this set of questions. Things were broken left and right. So imagine this. If things are broken left and right and it's already bad enough, can you imagine if things are broken left and right, front and back, up and down? Everything's broken. So if you have these questions to your peers that's about to make the change and keep insisting you, hey Mac, let's approve this. And Mac asks that peer, please answer my questions as provided. Rest assured, in terms of sanity, you will have it in check, guaranteed. Not doing a sales pitch, but rest assured, you'll be more sane towards managing some other more critical stuff at hand. So similar to how a typical developer development model in your product team, for Chef, it can be simplified as code, test, deploy. This will be something interesting, monitor, because whenever you deploy your things, there's a tendency that you walk away, have a few glasses of beer, probably a basket of chicken wings, and then guess what? You get pager duty alert, pager duty alert, pager duty alert. No, don't do that. Once you have deployed your codes, monitor them, at least probably like a few moments, give you like 15 minutes just to see how the traffic behaves. Or if you have like signals, right, like 500s or 400s, that will be a good indication to see if whatever changes that you introduce into your infrastructure is a good one. Otherwise, roll back, code, test, deploy, monitor. It's an endless cycle. So key takeaway is the trust that we have with our peers because we need them to help us to get our job done. It's more like help me, help you. But then again, it's more about Mac having trust on me, but it would be wrong or unjust to Mac that if he approves my PR and then I break the shit. I break the shit. No, I don't know. I break shit. Yeah, I break shit. So it's more about I passes the PR to Mac, and then Mac asks me, hey, have you done the following? It's more about the author shouldn't be the one approving his own action, but more about author getting a few pairs of eyes, probably 2 or more pairs of eyes, to vet the changes. Even better, have a self-documentation. You have heard of Jira, right? Some organizations might have used something other than Jira. Make full use of that because it will be, trust me, it will be so useful when you guys are doing some sort of a paper trail to investigate what actually went out, what actually was changed and by who, when, what. Okay, point number 2, test process and accompanying tools. This one could be something that is fresh to everyone, because throughout my experience working with chef, it's all about doing things even faster. But at the same time, if we are going too fast, we might end up having an accident, right? Accident being outages. So here we come again. It's all the things that we are most dreadful about: processes, standards, documentation. If we impose and practice those, we would achieve another level of nirvana. Yeah. Tranquility. Yep. Test phase. This particular section I'm dividing into 2, test phase and the test strategy. For test phase, you have linting, code testing, Cookbooks dependency resolver, Cookbook convergence test, and integration testing. All 5 items are actually loosely mentioned. However it's done is totally up to you, because in the end, you'll be able to see if your changes are done right. It all depends on the type of change that you make. For example, if you look at Cookbooks dependency resolver, when you make a change in your library cookbook and then you push it out, depending on your style of pinning, whether it's pessimistic pinning or hard pinning or no pinning at all, you'll definitely see something would go wrong if you're not doing it right. And then the way I'm breaking this apart would be, I shall briefly show you the tools that are involved with each distinct test phase. Linting, you have foodcritic, rubocop, shell check, and ruby-c. So you might be asking, shell check, is that something new? Ruby-c? No, it's not, because here's the thing. While many of you are really good with WPM, words per minute, I know that. Keep on typing, git push origin, boom, done. But here's the thing. When you are so into trying to get things done and you forget to do Ruby-c, so happen that Ruby is part of the cookbook. When the convergence happen, guess what? If it hits that particular code path, things will break. And misery happens again. It's all about, it breaks again. Let's fix this, right? It would be better that changes are tested as early as possible, preferably in your local environment, before even pushing it into a what do you call that, staging environment. Shell check basically is to check the sanity of your shell scripts. So far so good, right? Hopefully everyone is following. Everything makes sense. Yep. Okay, unit testing, chefspec. Nothing much to talk about this. In-memory unit testing, lots of mocking. Chefspec would be the only tool that is really useful for unit testing. Fundamentally, it's written with our spec, but with some flavor for chef. All right, Cookbook dependency resolver. If your organization is mature enough, there will be a need for bookshelf and private chef supermarket. The reason is because you will want to stage your changes and push out those proposed updated cookbooks into a private isolated environment before you push those cookbooks into a chef server, right? Makes sense? Because whenever you think that the things that you have done is good enough, it's never good enough. At least if you're leveraging on Chef Supermarket to stage your changes, you are not polluting whatever that's in Chef Server. Just imagine whatever that's in Chef Server is kosher to be used. Okay, Cookbook convergence test. Again, not much to go too detailed about. I believe many of us have heard about Test Kitchen, and to use Chef Zero in Test Kitchen, and also the accompanying plugins you have. EC2 plugin, Docker, GCE, and Azure. These are the common patterns that are embraced by the DevOps team and also the DevOps team plus the test engineering in the ops team. Integration testing, needless to say, Inspec. This is the most popular and common tool to be used for integration tests. Okay, so here's my point. At a base level, at least the team should be testing the state of the machines. And then once that's done, the team would mature into identifying how the security and the compliance landscape to be tested. Because Inspec, after all, has so many profiles that can be downloaded and can be leveraged to test your infrastructure. Overall, I took the effort to bundle this up into one slide so that when you do a screenshot, it's simple enough. The same pattern applies to all to slides that have resembles a similar pattern. Okay, time check, 3:20. Good. I have additional time. I still have time because I just have too much information to share with you, and I really want to make your time worth, especially for those that are standing back there, so that you guys do not feel left out and get the most out of this session. Okay, test strategy. 5 things here: verify idempotency, how to debug, triggering integration tests, version pinning, and running chef. Also, the content that is to be presented here could be something fresh to you guys, because if you have been in a world all about writing recipes, pushing it out, writing recipes, bumping it, pushing it out, and then hopefully crossing fingers, hoping that it doesn't cause any failures. These are the things that you can think about in terms of the testing, the strategies about how to test your cookbooks. So, idempotency. This is something that is really critical, because can you imagine if the changes that you make in a set or in a cookbook creates a snowflake? That would be somewhat anti-pattern, because what Chef does is that it needs to maintain some level of idempotency unless you intentionally introduce some change. For example, for a resource, let's say cookbook file, that you want it to be deleted. So that's acceptable. However, the testing to be done is all about, if I run this cookbook on an existing instance versus a newly launched instance, how would they behave, except for the part that I just introduced, right? Makes sense? Yeah. Debug. So if you remember a couple of slides prior to this, I mentioned the usage of books shelf. So if you look at this, I mentioned books vis. And if you go back to your laptop and have books shelf installed, you can actually try to run books vis on a cookbook that you have already run books installed. The reason is because when you run books vis, you'll be able to get roughly a landscape of how these cookbooks are interdependent on each other. The example that I have here is the publicly maintained Nginx cookbook, because if you run books vis, rest assured there's no mystery involved about asking your peer, I do not know where this cookbook comes from, questions like this. But rather you can be really deterministic, telling your peer that, hey Rick, this is the Nginx that you've downloaded. This is the dependency diagram that is produced. Yep. So far so good. Okay. I like this crowd. Okay, triggering integration tests. So here's the thing. With regards to triggering integration tests, there are at least two common patterns here, depending on how pessimistic your security and compliance team is. If your security team is really strict about incoming traffic to the nodes, and they are okay with those nodes sending out messages to other nodes, you can try running Inspec from the machines itself. Otherwise, if you have bargained with your security team about, hey, can we open up this port so that Automate can talk to those machines, yeah, you can opt for option 1 to trigger it from outbound. Yep. So far so good. Makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. It's just all about the human factor, about bargaining and negotiation between the DevOps teams and the security team, which is more often than not the more pessimistic team. Pessimistic. Okay. How to run Chef? This is also another interesting point to note. I have heard horror stories. I've been lingering in the conference area, hearing horror stories that some instances are actually has been only ran once. So can you imagine how much changes it has drifted from the mainstream? So the main strategy is to prevent those things, to prevent your nodes, Chef nodes, from drifting too far apart. You might want to consider running, injecting some kind of a cron job in those machines so that it is able to run Chef by itself. Some of the benefits would be that, say for example, probably I get some name here. Okay, Jack. Jack wants to try on something, right, at 10:30 in the evening, and then he forgotten to revert his changes. What he has done was that he manually changed the state of the machines, probably changing some sensitive file permission from 600 to 777, which is a big no-no. So if you have that daily Chef running on a cron job, most likely Jack will not be blamed for the change, because Chef would be able to help revert those changes, right? Yeah, right. The other one would be scheduled Chef run. Some mature organizations would want to wrap around the changes in Chef to do code freeze cycle, something similar to how you have learned from your product team. If you embrace that pattern, it will be really, really awesome, because not only that you can maintain some kind of a release train, but at least rest assured whatever changes that you have pushed into master will be well taken care of by some kind of automation that you have implemented. Having release management or release engineering team to put a checkpoint. Okay, Friday 1 p.m. is when we look at master branch, and then we will start doing knife spork promote. Anyone heard about that? Knife spork promote? Something new, right? Knife spork is actually a command in addition to various other knife commands. It is actually mainly used to do cookbook promotion. Okay, version pinning style. At least there are 4 patterns: hard pinning, pessimistic, optimistic, and no pinning. That's just too much to talk about. I would highly recommend that the audience take a snapshot of this and discuss this with your team members when you go back to your HQ or your desk, so that you can start forming a strategy about what are the cookbooks that really needs to be pinned down exactly to the exact version, or a cookbook that has some kind of a loose pinning. However, if we are talking about no pinning, this is actually a gray area. You really want to think not twice, but many, many, many times about this, because it's all about telling the chef client to pull whatever latest version of the cookbook that is uploaded into the chef server. Okay, like what I've promised, all the points will be consolidated into a slide so that it's easier for the audience to screenshot. Do it. Click, 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 click. Yeah. Okay, key takeaway. Well-defined test process with the proper usage of tools ensure delivery of high-quality chef cookbooks. Everyone excited yet? Are you excited to go back to your team? Okay, this is what Nick told us to do. Let's do it. Actually, that's one more point before I release you. Okay, deployment choreography. I bet everyone have attended that keynote session early this morning about, wow, awesome, things can be deployed so easily, seamlessly. Actually, okay, here's the thing. Once again, if you come to think about it at a very foundational level, without the help of all the tools, and simply because there are many reasons to this. Simply because your team doesn't want to invest more money. Otherwise, your team believe in the engineering capability of the team members to actually write some kind of automation to help push those changes. So here's the thing. Conventionally, 100% deployment to applicable chef node is a big no-no. I have no insight about how that one company actually allow the script to alter the configuration of the database that allow the meltdown of its core services for more than 12 hours. But if they practice this, then they should review their deployment choreography. It's all about the disadvantages of pushing your changes to all the affected nodes. Because can you imagine if you have those changes pushed out to all the chef nodes, you have very little to no time to roll back those changes. And by the time when it happens, you always hear this term, oh, Web 3.0 changes tested by users. Right? Yeah. So let's not do that. It's more about, as more organizations are becoming increasingly customer-driven, it is imperative to reduce or ideally prevent outages at all costs. What I was trying to say is that if you really want to do 100% deployment, try to do it in an isolated environment, probably an environment that would mimic 10% of your production environment, at least just to see if things are done right. Okay, improved. I have 3 common terms here. You have canary, A/B testing, and phased rollout. However, there could be more because it all depends on how your organization coins this kind of deployment choreography. Because the essence of this nature of deployment is that, say for example, you have 3 gentlemen here and you have 6 audience here. What you want to do is that it's up to you if you want to push your changes into machines that are odd. It would be 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, or you can do half, first half, second half. The intention is so that you are not breaking things, okay? Not breaking poo-poo, okay? Yeah. Okay. Remember, even when you have pushed your changes into odd, even, 50-50, 60-40, 75-25, then again, don't forget to monitor your changes, because it's all about the signals that you have to rely on in order to to press the button to continue your deployment. The other thing that I would like to talk about, point that is all about the gating process. We will never be 100% free from failures, but at least what we can do is that we can reduce the failures. That's the reason why there's so many nines in SLA. You have 99.99999, because rarely there are organizations that will say, oh, we can do 100% uptime. Because if you do an average, there's some kind of an error once in a while that happens to the infrastructure. Okay, advantages of doing this, like what I mentioned before, is about the reviews that you've done on the changes. You talk to your peers about risk acceptance, risk avoidance, and limitation. And also it allows, who is that? Let me get a name. Salima to think about the procedures to allow the less expensive rollback. Instead of waiting for the customers to suffer 18 hours of outage, it will be about, okay, that's outage, but at least we experience a 30 minutes downtime, right? It's all about, similar to Okta, there are just too many customers and organizations authenticate to us. And like what I mentioned just now, it is imperative for us to maintain the availability of our service so that our customers will be able to authenticate against us to be productive in their work environment. Okay. Key takeaway, always plan and assess risk before deploy your changes. Because if you have all these 3 points in check, culture of testing, test strategy, and deployment choreography, rest assured you achieve high level of tranquility. You can always go back to your, go back in time, 5 p.m., okay, let's go. And then the other thing to note is that you get less pager duty alert. One fun fact. It's always about you get page from the pager duty alert and you just press X and you don't respond to it. So it's time to get something done by changing our mindset. Yep. So summary, like what I mentioned just now, 3 main points: culture of testing, test process, deployment choreography. It's all about working together as a team and getting things done right in the right way. Yep. Okay, Q&A session. Do I have time?
Yes. You got 5 minutes. So
okay, just in time. Great.
I'll cover this side of the room.
Okay.
That side, raise your hand. We'll come right to you.
We've recently had some success in our cookbooks moving to policy files, and I'm curious. Obviously, there's some things with Berkshelf that we've lost in that transition, but we get a sort of a cleaner document there that we can put into an approval process. So I'm curious about using things like Berks Viz or whatever with but still keeping the advantages of policy files.
Mm-hmm. Sure. So the question from that gentleman is about the trade-offs between Bookshelf and policy files. I was able to talk about Bookshelf because I've been playing a lot with it. In terms of policy files, it would be certainly really, really good to switch to that, provided that, which the gentleman has already mentioned, a clear context about what's being pinned. And then the second one is that if it allows some kind of visualization of a dependency diagram of how things look like in your infrastructure. Yep. Otherwise, I would say both are on par with each other. It's just about the preference of the tooling. Simply because Bookshelf leverages on a private supermarket that you have to declare at the top part of Bookshelf. I haven't gone too much into policy files yet. Not sure if private supermarket integrates well with policy file. Yeah. Cool. Any other questions from the audience? Yes, sir. Oh, no, you.
How do you recommend doing like the canary deployment for the? I got it.
How do you recommend doing canary deployments or like blue-green testing for chef, just different environments or roles, or how do you do that across your servers?
Sure. It all depends. Oh, so let me repeat the question. The question is about factors to determine the how to run A/B or blue-green deployment. Various factors. One of it is that depending on your cloud provider, if you are using, if you are running on cloud, it all depends on your AZ. Say for example, if you stripe your infrastructure across multi-region, of course you have to think about if you are pushing those changes into some instances into the East region and then some instances in the West region, or probably only this region will be, but never 100% on one region. It's always about leaving some leeway so that at least you can recover quickly. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I was just wondering how you guys did it.
At Okta, how we are doing it is that we stripe our instances across AZs, and then we also run our instances by zone. So, say for example, when you have East 1 and East 2, so we would determine if 50% will be pushed to East 1, and then 50% will be done on East 2. Yep. I'm speaking in terms of AWS. Yeah. Any other questions from the floor? I have a really wonderful crowd today, and I'm really appreciative that you make the effort to come here. Thank you.